day when we celebrate a diverse range of impressive achievements and service. The Australian Honours System provides a wonderful mechanism through which we as a nation are able to recognise and celebrate ordinary Australians doing extraordinary things. Since its inception in 1975, over 420,000 people have been recognised for their meritorious, bravery, military or national service. The Order of Australia is the principal means of recognising outstanding service. And it's important to note that nominations come from all areas of the community. Anyone can nominate. As staff at Government House, my colleagues and I are privileged to play a small part in the recognition and celebration of that achievement. I hope we can make today an occasion that you'll all recall with pride for some time to come. Shortly, I'll invite you to stand as Their Excellencies the Governor-General and Mrs Hurley enter the room, and please remain standing for the singing of the first verse of the Australian National Anthem. The investiture will then begin and proceed in the order listed in your programs. After I read the names and citations, the recipients will enter the room from the doorway on my right, and after they've been invested, will return via the central aisle to their seats at the rear of the room. At this point, you might like to show your appreciation with a short applause as the recipients return to their seat. At the conclusion of the ceremony, I'll invite recipients to join Their Excellencies on the state entrance stairs for an official photograph. And after those photographs have been taken, Their Excellencies and recipients look forward to joining all guests in the dining room where refreshments will be served. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please relax and enjoy this very special occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand for the arrival of Her Excellencies the Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia and Mrs Hurley, and for the singing of the first verse of the Australian National Anthem.
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome from Linda and I and the staff here at Government House Yarralumla to this very special occasion and ceremony in the lives of our recipients and of course their families and friends who are with them here today or might be watching. This day, these ceremonies are a highlight on our calendar here at Government House at Yarralumla. And Yarralumla, of course, sits on the land of the Ngunnawal people, and I thank them for looking after this beautiful part of our country for generation after generation and pay respects to elders past and present. The reason why we conduct these ceremonies is to acknowledge the contribution of the recipients to the life, the fabric, the well-being of this country and its people. Ours is a somewhat unique honours and awards system around the world, in that those, particularly those in the general list or the civilian side of the order, are nominated by their peers, by other members of the community. Ours is not an honours and awards system where an elite in Canberra or a capital city reaches down and says, Bill, Jenny or Bob are doing a great job, we're going to give them a medal. No, our system is from, one could say, from the bottom up. It's your system. I want you to bear that in mind as we conduct the ceremony, because I'm going to issue some homework after the formal part of the ceremony and before you leave. And the fruits of your homework will be here in this room in 2 years' time. This year, of course, has been a very difficult year for Australia. And indeed, when Linda and I were in Sydney, when I was the Governor of New South Wales, leading up to the last 12 months in this appointment, we've suffered terrible drought, floods, of course, horrific bushfires over the last summer, and now a pandemic which has had both a health and economic impact, adverse impact on our communities. And not being able to travel as freely as we'd like, Linda and I have spent many, many hours over the last months using every type of virtual meeting app known to man to communicate with the communities around Australia, with the leadership of our communities from the mayoral to state and federal level, to gauge how communities are faring and to encourage people in their work for each other. After each of those calls, we come away uplifted, and my view, and I'm an optimist, but the results of what I see underpin my optimism. After each of those meetings, I come away reinforced in my knowledge, understanding of the strength, the goodness, and the great character that there is out in Australia. And today's ceremony is a small example of that, a microcosm, tip of the iceberg of what goes on day by day in our community. And we should rejoice in that. Now, today is also a day of pomp and protocol. Nice young people standing in sparkling uniforms, as it should be, because it is such a significant day in our Australia, in the nation's life. But this is also an Australian Government House, so please relax, as Paul has said. You may smile, applaud at the appropriate times, and at the completion of the formal part of the ceremony, we'll gather together for some refreshments to get to know you all better, and really to pass on our thanks on behalf of your fellow Australians for what you've done. And on that note, I shall now commence the formal ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, to be presented with the insignia of her appointment as a member in the General Division, Professor Christine Phillips, for significant service to medical education, to migrant and refugee health, and to medicine. Professor Phillips has made an important contribution to the community through the education of generations of medical practitioners and through the development of the national architecture on refugee health. As one of the founders of the Refugee Health Network of Australia, she's worked diligently to improve the health and wellbeing outcomes for refugees and marginalised populations. She's also served as the Medical Director of Companion House, which provides medical and psychosocial support for new refugees to the Canberra region. In addition to refugee health, Professor Phillips' research interests include primary healthcare systems, the health of vulnerable people, and quality in health service, and she has published extensively in these areas. Professor Christine Phillips appointed a member of the Order. To be presented with the insignia of his appointment as a member in the Military Division, Commodore Richard Bolton. For exceptional performance of duty as the Director General Military Strategic Commitments and as Director of Navy International Engagement. Commodore Bolton has demonstrated sustained leadership and commitment to Australia's security and safety. Since joining the Navy in 1989, he served in a range of positions, including as Commanding Officer of HMAS Melbourne during her deployment to the Middle East in 2012. As Director of Navy International Engagement, he improved planning initiatives and introduced new delivery concepts in conjunction with the Defence White Paper in 2016. In military strategic commitments, he led the strategic planning of the Australian Defence Force options in support of a Pacific Step-Up program. He was also vital to the coordination and deployment of 2,800 defence personnel to assist with the evacuation of 500 people following the Queensland floods in 2019. Commodore Bolton's service is in the finest traditions of the Navy and of the Australian Defence Force. Commodore Richard Bolton appointed a member of the Order. To be presented with the insignia of her award of the Medal of the Order in the General Division, Mrs. Alison Aiken. For service to the community of the Australian Capital Territory. Mrs. Aiken is an exemplar of volunteerism, and her contributions to the community over many years have been outstanding. She has tirelessly devoted her time to showcasing and explaining the relevance of the Australian War Memorial and the Museum of Australian Democracy at Old Parliament House as a guide to locals and visitors alike. She has willingly imparted her enthusiasm and knowledge to other volunteer guides through mentoring and training roles. She's also been an active member of the congregation of St Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Forest for over 60 years. Mrs. Aiken has been a great asset to the life of Canberra. Mrs. Alison Aiken awarded the Medal of the Order.
You'll get a photo. Mrs. Aiken and my wife and I seem to get on church on Sundays.
To be presented with the insignia of his award of the Medal of the Order in the General Division, Mr. Gregory Malavey, for service to people with a disability and to the community of the Eurobodalla. Mr. Malavey has devoted a large part of his life towards improving his community and assisting people in need. In particular, he has been involved with a local charitable organisation that provides support to people with a disability. The organisation operates social enterprises that provide employment for 100 people, as well as disability housing, a respite centre and a mental health service. He has been the key driver in developing forward-thinking business strategies to meet the needs of this sector in our community. Mr. Malavey's vision and passion for supporting people with a disability has been exemplary. Mr. Gregory Malavey awarded the Medal of the Order.
Congratulations. In short, you're thinking of having a big heart for people in the community who need that assistance. Creating that environment, I think is really important. Maybe more for me than I do for others.
To be presented with the insignia of his award of the Commendation for Distinguished Service, Col Jason Grote, for distinguished performance of duties in warlike operations as the Commander Task Group Taji 8 on Operation Okra in Iraq from 21st of November 2018 to the 9th of June 2019. Colonel Grote transformed Task Group Taji 8 from a training-focused organisation to one dedicated to building partner capacity in support of the coalition mission in Iraq. Under his leadership, more than 6,000 Iraqi soldiers were trained, and the task group became the coalition exemplar for build partner capacity training. He also established a combined technical operations centre that centralised and integrated all operations functions and allowed him to effectively command and protect 4,000 coalition members located at Camp Taji. Colonel Grote significantly enhanced the Iraqi Army's capability and reinforced Australia's reputation as a valuable coalition partner. Col Jason Grote awarded the Commendation for Distinguished Service. To be presented with the insignia of his award of the Conspicuous Service Medal, Commander David Rendell, for meritorious achievement in the field of information technology, specifically the implementation of robotic process automation. Commander Rendell managed a team tasked with the development and introduction of robotic process automation. During the project, he deftly negotiated with the Chief Information Officer Group to define new information technology project processes that met stringent testing and security requirements. His efforts have resulted in the implementation of tools that have freed up workforce capacity equivalent to 10 people. Commander Rendell's judgment and leadership will have a major impact on the capability and contemporary workforce design across the Australian Defence Force. Commander David Rendell awarded the Conspicuous Service Medal. To be presented with the insignia of her award of the Conspicuous Service Medal, Major Leonora Dunn, for meritorious achievement as Staff Officer Grade 2 Indigenous Projects, Army People Capability Branch. Major Dunn has been instrumental in Army's contribution to the Defence Reconciliation Action Plan and the National Closing the Gap Strategy. Upon the establishment of the Army Indigenous Portfolio in 2010, she developed essential mechanisms that have supported the growth of Army's Indigenous workforce. Her creation of a 120-strong Army Regional Indigenous Network and her development of the Army Indigenous Handbook has ensured the Indigenous workforce is well supported and Army commanders are educated on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture. Major Dunn's knowledge, mentorship and influence in Defence Indigenous affairs is without peer. Major Leonora Dunn awarded the Conspicuous Service Medal. To be presented with the insignia of his award of the Public Service Medal, Mr. Nico Padavan, for outstanding public service in program and policy delivery, including supporting the recovery and reconstruction of the livestock industry in North Queensland. Mr. Padavan has served the Australian Public Service with dedication for over 30 years. In his role with the North Queensland Livestock Industry Recovery Agency, he was pivotal to the recovery and reconstruction of the livestock industry after the rain event that devastated North Queensland in 2019. He engaged with livestock producers and communities to ensure the delivery of government support measures, including overseeing the dispersal of financial assistance worth over $89 million to primary producers in special disaster assistance recovery grants. Mr. Padavan's efforts are helping to create more disaster resilient infrastructure and communities for the future. Mr. Nico Padavan awarded the Public Service Medal.
Congratulations. Previous visit to seeing the devastation. Thank you for everything you did for those people. That's going a lot around and still doing it. Thank you. Don't normally comment publicly on this, but having visited the Northern Queensland area, can you imagine a body of water the size of Victoria that developed in 11 days and then washed into the Gulf? That was the scene that Nico arrived upon. and it's helped to transform. So this is a very worthy recognition for that. Congratulations.
To be presented with the insignia of his award of the Australian Corrections Medal, Mr. Jason Stockheim, for distinguished service to the ACT Corrective Services. Mr. Stockheim has served ACT Corrective Services for over 20 years and is currently the admissions supervisor at the Alexander McConaughey Centre. He is highly respected for his promotion of a positive workplace culture through his considered decision-making in both his day-to-day duties and during the management of incidents. He was instrumental in developing and introducing the situational use of force model and is a very effective mentor of staff. Mr. Stockheim demonstrates effective management of detainees and through his commitment has provided superior service to ACT Corrective Services. Mr. Jason Stockheim awarded the Australian Corrections Medal. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that concludes the presentations this afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've acknowledged each of our recipients individually. I think it would be appropriate now to acknowledge them as a group. Please join me. Now for your homework. I draw your attention in particular to what's known as the General Division or the Civilian Division within the Order of Australia. There are two divisions, a military and a general or civilian. You'll have noticed the wide range of contributions that people in the General Division have been recognised in and for. When you go home, you will know exactly the same people in your community. So your homework is to go home and nominate. Our system does not work without your nominations. Of course, from the office here, we drive the program, we administer it, and we market it and we promote it. But nominations must come from Australian citizens for Australian citizens. So your homework is go home, you know exactly who they are, and nominate. Paul will tell you how to do it. But I'm here to judge your homework and mark it in about 2 years' time when I see the results coming through this room on another investiture ceremony. So please, we need to do this. Why? Statistically, only amongst our figures, 40% of the recipients are women. That is inappropriate. It needs to be higher. Our multicultural representation is not as high as it should be, nor is our Indigenous representation. So back in your communities, you know who is doing the good work, who should be recognised for assisting their fellow citizens. Please spend some time, think it through and nominate. Then Renaud, I now look forward to spending some time with you in Government House here, as I said earlier, to get to know you and to share in the celebration of significant achievements from our recipients today. So congratulations to you all and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to assist with the homework that the Governor-General has just issued, I do encourage you to look at the Governor-General's website where you'll find plenty of information about how to nominate someone that you think is worthy of recognition within the Order of Australia. And as the Governor-General has said, we look forward to welcoming that person back here to an investiture ceremony just like this in a couple of years' time. Shortly, I invite you to stand for the departure of Her Excellencies the Governor-General, Mrs Hurley, and the recipients as they proceed to the state entrance stairs for a photograph. I invite guests just to remain briefly here in the drawing room until their Excellencies and recipients have departed. Refreshments will then be served in the dining room where their Excellencies and recipients look forward to joining the guests. Would you please stand for the departure of Her Excellencies the Governor-General, Mrs Hurley, and the recipients. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.